This is Duke University.
Let's start by acknowledging that the United States is the largest oil consumer in the world. The Chinese actually consume more energy, but we still retain the place of pride as being the largest oil consumers in the world. We have proven resources of about 2% of the world's reserves, but we consume 22% of the world's oil. The Chinese are number 2 at 11%. It's been more than 40 years since we've been able to produce all the oil that we consume. This slide shows the Energy Information Administration's past look at how much we've consumed versus what we've been able to produce at home. And then they project out to 2035 what our consumption and production will be. You'll see that actually in 2005, we had to import 60% of the oil that we used in this country. Now, one of the really interesting things that's happening is that that has shrunk. There was something happened here. What was it? Oh, the recession, which cut down the amount of oil that we use. We're actually getting more efficient, and that trend will continue. The new CAFE standards, the amount of mileage cars made in the United States have to get, the new requirements will continue to push down our consumption. Perhaps more interestingly, our production has been going up for the last 8 years, which you might not have known from listening to the rhetoric in the presidential campaign, but in fact, for a variety of reasons, and a lot of it is linked to North Dakota and Montana shale oil, the United States oil production has been going up. But if you look out 20 years, we're still going to be importing a lot of oil. Now, a week ago, I would have said that the idea that we will ever become energy independent was simply not true. Now I say, well, even if it is true, we're talking about 2030, according to that report, so we still have a long way to go where we're going to have a gap between what we produce and what we consume. So where is all this imported oil going to come from? Well, where does it come from now? This chart shows the top 5 US suppliers of foreign oil, top 5 countries that supply oil to us. If you can't read this very well, here's Canada, which, as you can see, provides about 3 million barrels a day of oil to the United States, more than twice as much as the next largest country, which is Saudi Arabia. Now, this is actually August 2012. It's a monthly snapshot, and it's actually a very interesting chart because for the last 7, 8 years, Canada's been the top supplier of oil to the United States for about 8 years, and for most of that period, Mexico was actually number 2. Down here in the 5th position is Iraq, and that's also a new development. And the 5th position had been Nigeria. But for a variety of reasons, production from Mexico, Venezuela, and Nigeria has been falling. In the Mexican case, it's because foreign investment's not allowed in the energy sector. In the Venezuelan case, it's because there's a crazy guy running the country, and he's kind of bankrupted the oil company. So the prospect actually is, Canadian oil exports to the United States, by the way, are expected to continue to rise as this production from the oil sands comes online, continues to come online. But oil from Mexico, Venezuela, Nigeria are expected to continue to decline. So now you're saying, well, what's that got to do with the Keystone XL pipeline? The main rationale for Keystone XL is that it will allow Canada to send us an additional 800,000 barrels of oil a day. Given our thirst for oil, that's probably a good thing on its face. But the oil it will send us, and which represents the vast majority of its production, is a very heavy, viscous crude oil that requires specialized refineries to process. As it turns out, oil from Mexico and Venezuela is also very heavy and requires special facilities. And we have dozens of refineries along the Gulf Coast of the United States that are set up to handle that very kind of crude. As we just saw, imports from these two countries have been declining and are expected to fall off sharply in the next 5 to 10 years. The logical replacement would be oil from Canada. But because of the way the US pipeline system has been built, very little of that Canadian oil now makes it to the Gulf Coast.
Produced by Duke University. Online at duke.edu.